That Joe Gentz was released by Grosse Pointe Park Police just this afternoon, and it all boils down to money. That, according to Bob Bashara's attorney. And Joe Gentz, as you remember, came here to police on Tuesday with a lot of allegations about who was involved in Jane Bashara's murder. And attorney David Grimm talks about how things got heated between his client Bob Bashara and Joe Gentz.
Joe was somebody who, for a businessman like Bob, in rehabbing and taking care of as many rental properties he had, Joe is something of a dream. Not the smartest guy in the world, and works cheap.
Joe Gentz worked as a handyman for Bob Bashara, and when Gentz went to police claiming he himself was somehow involved in the killing of Bob Bashara's wife, he was reportedly also implicating Bob Bashara. And today, Bashara's attorney told reporters that his client and Joe had been arguing about how much money Bob owed him. David Grimm suggested that Joe Gentz may have had an axe to grind when he went to police.
The first day that Joe Gentz walked into Grosse Pointe Park Police Department, that I think Bob Bashara jumped from a person of interest to the #1 suspect.
Grimm says the dispute was about $2,000, and he says when Bob Bashara was asked about Joe Gentz's possible motive to implicate him in the murder of his wife,
Bob responded that anything where Joe Gentz implicated him was untrue, completely untrue, and a fabrication to get back at Bob.
Grimm says Joe was hounding Bob about monies he believed he was owed, and that's the only reason why Bob Bashara wrote Joe Gentz a check for $452 the day before Bashara reported his wife missing.
If I had Joe wanting money from me, my first thought would be to give him everything he was asking for. But then as a businessman, if you do that, that can come back to bite you too.
And police here at Grosse Pointe Park are not commenting on the release of Joe Gentz or the status of their investigation right now. But coming up at 6 o'clock, Bob Bashara's attorney, David Grimm, who you just heard there, he talks about what he thinks happened in the garage the day that Jane Bashara was killed. We'll have that part of our story coming up at 6. Back to you, Joanne.
Kim, it's so bizarre, isn't it? Because this idea that no one's talking about Gentz, but that he indeed was released today, it has to have had to do with that 72 hours, and he's been there over 72 hours, and they really, if they weren't going to bring charges, had to let him go, right?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like we never really knew exactly when that 72-hour count was going to start in all of this, because remember, Joe Gentz walked here voluntarily. He came here to talk to police. So when he was technically under arrest or in custody, we really don't know. But again, he was released this afternoon. Our best guess is sometime around noon or 1 o'clock, just after that. And the question is exactly where does this investigation stand at this point? It certainly has taken quite a few turns, more than I've ever seen in any murder investigation.
Well, yeah, and you've heard sources say that his story changed so many times. You don't know what police believe about what he had to say. Getting back to David Grimm for a second, Bob Bashara's attorney, I know at the press conference today, he said he does not believe his client is going to be charged in this case, and this was even before Mr. Gentz was released today.
Yeah, and he really wouldn't talk much about any sort of alleged extramarital relationships that Bob Bashara may have had outside of his relationship with his wife of 26 years, Jane Bashara. But again, like you said, this case has taken so many twists and turns at this point. It's really hard to tell exactly where the investigation stands at this point. But you'll hear a lot more of that coming up at 6 o'clock.
I know you're on top of it for us. Kimberly Craig reporting. Thank you very much.